Ever feel like you need like a graphic design degree just to send out a simple newsletter?
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into an approach to email marketing that honestly might seem a little counterintuitive,
Okay.
but it's surprisingly effective. Plaintext emails.
I think what's really interesting here is the why behind it. Because it's not just about minimalism, right?
Yeah.
It's about psychology and deliverability and cutting through the noise
Right.
of the digital world that we live in.
Because we've all been trained to think like more is more.
Right.
Like we need to, make it really visually appealing.
Yeah.
But this whole deep dive into plain text emails has me kind of questioning everything.
Interesting.
So we're looking at these insights from Email Guru over at Deliverability Dialogues. They're making a really compelling case for why plain text often outperforms those fancy image-heavy emails.
Yeah.
They even say a simple thank you from, like, the CEO sent as a plain text email.
Oh, wow.
Consistently ranks as a top performer. What do you think about that?
It makes me think about authenticity. That's what comes to mind. Because if you think about how many marketing messages people are just bombarded with all day long.
Totally.
And then something as simple as a plain text email lands in your inbox.
Yeah.
Especially from somebody important like a CEO. It feels more personal in a way because it cuts through all the clutter.
Yeah, it's like finding one of those handwritten notes, tucked in between like a gas bill and a credit card offer.
Yeah.
You bet I'm reading that note first.
Exactly. It disrupts expectations and that makes you stand out.
It makes you memorable.
Yeah.
Okay, so this article lays out 5 key reasons why they think plain text emails win.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of surprised by some of them. First up is deliverability.
Makes sense.
Which makes sense because those spam filters, they seem to love those image-heavy emails. Probably because it looks like every other marketing email out there. But with plain text, less to flag, right?
Well, it has to do with how the email is perceived, right? Because a plain text email is more likely, I think, to be seen as a genuine message.
Right.
Like you're sending an email to a colleague or a friend.
Right.
Whereas when you get those really heavily designed emails with tons of images and all this code, it can trip up those filters because that's what it looks like, what most marketers are sending.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
It's like they're on high alert.
Exactly.
So better deliverability means a higher chance of actually landing in the inbox and not the dreaded spam folder, which is what we all want.
Think of it this way.
Yeah.
Would you rather receive a handwritten letter
Ooh.
or a billboard?
A letter, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Especially if it's handwritten.
And that's the thing. One feels personal, and it's delivered directly to you.
Right.
Whereas the other one, it's just mass-produced,
right.
Easy to ignore.
Yeah.
And that's the difference in perception that impacts where your email ends up.
Okay, that's a great analogy. So reason number 2 is all about standing out, which feels a little counterintuitive when you're talking about plain text.
Right.
But this article argues that being different, especially in a sea of like perfectly polished templates, can actually make you stand out more.
Right.
Kind of like that one friend we all have that wears like the most eye-catching outfit to a party. You always remember that person. Right?
Absolutely. And it goes back to what we were talking about, disrupting expectations.
Right. Yeah.
That's what plain text does in the inbox. Think about some of the brands that you remember.
Yeah.
What do they all have in common? They're not afraid to do things differently.
They're not afraid to stand out a little bit.
Exactly.
All right. Point taken. So the third reason why plain text emails win is something I can definitely get behind. They're just easier on the eyes. No more squinting at tiny fonts or waiting for images to load.
Yeah, readability is so important, and plain text just excels there. And not everybody has
That's true.
amazing internet either.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
It's inclusive in that way because it ensures that your message gets through no matter what.
Accessibility for the win.
Yes.
Now, reason number 4 dives into the psychology of it all, the personal touch. This article really emphasizes talking like a real person and ditching the stuffy corporate jargon. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it comes down to trust, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like when you strip away all the marketing speak and you just talk to people.
Right.
It builds a connection.
Yeah.
And it feels more genuine. Remember that example of the CEO, thank you?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, because it shows a human side,
Right.
It's like they're breaking down those corporate walls. It's not just Sarah from customer service hiding behind a logo.
Right.
It's one person connecting with another.
You're right. It's funny you should mention that because I actually got an email from the founder of this small company I ordered something from once.
Yeah.
And it totally stood out to me because it just felt like they cared, and it made me want to support them even more.
You see, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so reason number 5. This one is about engagement. And according to Email Guru, plain text emails can actually lead to higher open and click-through rates. And this is where I need a little more convincing.
Okay.
How does getting rid of all the bells and whistles actually make people take action?
Well, the way they explain it is that it's about focus. Because with those plain text emails, there aren't all those distractions competing with your message. So your call to action is going to shine brighter.
Right.
Plus, your subject line becomes even more important. It's like a headline. It has to grab someone's attention.
Right. You're cutting through the noise
Yes.
and delivering that message in its purest form.
Yes.
No fancy fonts or GIFs or anything.
It's like the writing equivalent of a cappella, right?
Ooh, I like that.
It's just stripped down,
Yeah.
raw talent.
Exactly. And just like a cappella can be so powerful and so moving, so can a well-crafted plain text email. But we've got to talk about the elephant in the room here.
Okay.
This doesn't mean we all need to ditch branding.
Right. They make a good point because the article does acknowledge that it's not like a magic bullet, right? There's a balance to be struck between that minimalist approach and, still maintaining that consistent brand that people recognize. They even say those visually appealing emails, they still have their place, especially when it comes to building your brand.
It all depends on your audience, I think,
Yeah.
and what your goals are for that specific email campaign.
Right.
The example they gave in the article, which I thought was fascinating, is Sticker Mule. They use pretty much only plain text emails for all of their marketing.
Oh, wow. That's kind of a bold move. But I guess it works for them because their whole thing is simplicity and just getting straight to the point.
Exactly. It's a risk, but it pays off. Because by communicating this way, they're basically signaling to their customers that they're confident in what they're selling.
Right.
They let the product speak for itself.
Right.
They're not relying on all the bells and whistles. It's minimalist.
Yeah.
It's memorable.
Yes.
And clearly it's working for them.
Yeah.
What do you think our Sticker Mule move would be?
Ooh, I like that.
How could we strip things back
Yeah.
and use that minimalist approach to really highlight what makes us unique?
Yeah.
It's something to consider for sure.
Yeah.
We spend so much time talking about the latest technology, all the new trends, the next big thing. But this was a good reminder, I think, that sometimes
simple is better.
it is. Going back to basics.
Yeah.
Clear communication.
Just connecting with people.
Building connections, exactly. And sometimes a plain text email might be all it takes.
It's like we've been so busy trying to impress with fancy designs and clever copy that we forget about just a genuine human connection.
Yeah, and it's so easy to fall into that trap, especially when you're competing for attention online.
Yeah.
But I think as we've seen from, these insights that we've been talking about,
Right.
sometimes the most effective solution is the simplest one.
Totally.
It's about stripping away all the unnecessary stuff and just getting back to the core of communication. Authenticity, clarity, and connection. And maybe all it takes is a plain text email.
That's beautifully said. It's like a palate cleanser for your inbox.
Yeah.
But for those of us who are used to relying on, visuals and templates, where do you even begin with plain text? What's one key takeaway that our listeners should keep in mind if they're inspired to ditch the templates and give this a try?
I always say, don't be afraid to experiment.
Right.
So start by maybe testing out plain text emails with a small group.
Okay.
See what the response is like.
Yeah.
Track your open rates, your click-through rates, conversions, all that. Just,
Right, what's working and what's not.
Exactly. And you might be surprised.
Yeah, it's all about figuring out what works best for you and your audience, right? And who knows? Trying something new, even if it seems a little weird at first, could be the key to a whole other level. As we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what's your biggest takeaway? What has you thinking differently about email marketing?
It's funny because we talk so much about the latest technology and all the hot new trends.
Oh, yeah.
Always kind of chasing that next big thing. But this was really refreshing for me.
Right.
Because it reminded me that the most effective solutions are usually the simplest ones.
Yeah.
Getting back to basics. Focusing on communicating clearly.
And genuine.
Exactly. And building those real connections.
So true. It's a good reminder for all of us.
It is.
Well, listeners, next time you hit send on that email, ask yourself, could plain text be the secret weapon your inbox has been waiting for?
Something to think about.
It definitely is. And on that note, that's a wrap on another deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.